Another myth about bats is that all bats carry rabies. Bats do carry rabies. It's about 2% of the bat population. But you can see from these graphs that 2% of the bat population is similar to the occurrence of rabies with skunks, raccoons, and other kinds of carnivores. So there are some bats that carry rabies, but not all of them. The important thing to remember with rabies is that rabies is basically a fatal disease. There are 2 people documented in the literature who have had a rabies infection. They've been put in a coma for several years and they've been able to bring them back slowly. But basically this is a viral infection that takes a little while to get to your central nervous system, but once it gets to your central nervous system, it's probably going to be fatal. Bats don't get the crazy Cujo kind of rabies where they chase after you and try and attack you. When they are rabid, they get very calm and sleepy. And so if you see a bat sitting on the side of a house or a wall, it's 2 or 3 feet up and it's just sitting there not moving around, that's not a healthy bat. It should be scared, it should be skittish, it should be flying away. It's just sitting there not doing anything. That's potentially a rabid bat. Now, what's scary is that your cat or dog could get that, a child could pick it up because it's just sitting there, and then you could get accidentally bit. So the bottom line with rabies is if you encounter a bat, especially on the ground or during the day, assume it's rabid and do not touch it. If it's somewhere where you need to get it out of a house or a school, make sure you use a towel, fold it over several layers so that you will not come in direct contact with the organism. Now I handle bats all the time and I run this risk, so what I have is my rabies vaccination. Just like your dog and cat are vaccinated for rabies, I've been given a dead form of the rabies vaccine so that my immune system is ready to handle that. I still make sure I don't get bit though, because getting bit is not that fun. If exposure to saliva is a possibility, a bite occurred or a bite could have unknowingly occurred, then you need to capture the bat for testing if that's possible, and presume that you got exposed and get post-exposure rabies shots. So if you get bit by an organism with rabies, you can go get post-exposure shots, and that will give you immunity for a couple weeks. And that absolutely works. It won't work if you wait 3 or 4 weeks, but if you go get those shots right away, you'll be fine. It's not 22 shots in the stomach. There's a lot of sort of horrible stories about rabies shots. It is an immunoglobulin shot, so it's a big needle, but it's better than getting a fatal disease. I do want to note that you can't get rabies from a bat flying over you. You can't get rabies from a bat flying through your house. The only time you can get rabies is if you get the virus in your bloodstream and it has to come from the bat's saliva. So I just want to show you some pictures of some of the bats from Northern California. We have about 17 species, and the most common are the little brown bats. We have 6 different ones: the big brown bat, the pallid bat, and the Mexican free-tailed bat. We also have some cliff roosting bats, the pipistrelle, spotted bat, and mastiff bat. We have cave roosting bats, the Townsend's big-eared bat, and then some tree roosting bats, western red, hoary, and silver-haired. I should say the western pipistrelle, the cliff roosting bat, its name has been updated to Peristrellus. So here's one of these little bats. You can see his little whiskers and his thumbs. Here we're taking some measurements, and if you look at the piece of paper behind, that's a key. A key is a series of questions that help you look at the organism and determine exactly which species. And here we're trying to figure out which of the different 6 myotis this particular one was. This is a big brown bat looking a little frazzled. Here's a pallid bat. This is the bat that I did my work on. Here's a pallid bat we finished working with. We were ready to let go, and she turned around and chattered at us for a while, so she wasn't quite warm enough, ready to take off for the evening. Here's one of the little Peristrellus. This is the smallest bat we have in our area. They've got this cute little black mask. They often come out well before dusk. So if you see very, very small bats flitting around 45 minutes, half an hour before sunset, it's probably the little Peristrellus. Here's another one of the little myotis bats in our area. Here's a larger bat. This is the hoary bat, and we're measuring with calipers the forearm length, which will tell us whether it's an adult or juvenile. Notice for this one, the ears don't stick out nearly as much. This is a tree roosting bat. You're going to lose too much heat if you have your ears really exposed and you live out in a tree. So here you can see the ears and the eyes a little bit up close. They have this white tipped fur. It turns out that that blends in with ponderosa pine trees perfectly. Here we can see how much bigger this bat looks when you actually stretch its legs out. He's not very happy with us here, and you can see those very sharp carnivore-like teeth. This is a red bat. This is another tree roosting bat that you'll find in cottonwoods and willows along rivers. So this is a bat that you would find along the Sacramento or American River. This is me in a cave down in Rockland. This is a Townsend's big-eared bat. This was a very exciting day of my career when we found 6 Townsend's big-eared bats in a cave. They hadn't been documented in the Rockland area since 1906, and so this was a pretty exciting find. This was the best sort of ghostly picture that we could get, but you can see the big ears sort of sticking out of the top of the head. For this particular site, what we ended up doing is having a bat gate put in. This is a mine that's fairly dangerous, and you don't want kids and people getting into trouble inside of it, but we wanted the bats to still have their habitat. So you build a series of horizontal metal slats that are just far apart enough that a bat could fly out, but too close together for a kid to get their head through. And so now the habitat is protected, and it's also safe for people in the area. So when we're capturing bats, we use nets, and generally what we do is we put the nets out over water near where we think the bats are roosting. And so it's kind of a guess where that should be. When they wake up at dusk, they're thirsty. They're going to go get a drink of water, and they're going to get a drink of water close by. And so we're trying to catch them at a place that they're used to going all the time. Now, bats can echolocate and absolutely tell that there's a net. And so most of the night, you watch bats fly over the net, under the net, and around the net. But every once in a while, you catch a couple bats. If I were to set up a net across your driveway in the morning when you're leaving for school, I would probably catch some of you. Even though you should notice that there was a net there. You're kind of groggy. You pull out every morning. And so why look for a net? Same thing with bats. Once you catch a bat in a net, you will probably never catch it again. Some ecological sampling methods that require that you recapture, and they just don't work with bats because once they've gone through the experience, they will never get caught again. So here we've got a bat in a net, and we're sort of carefully pulling them back out so that we can take some measurements. Here I've got a bat in my hand taking some measurements for a class at Sac State. When we have a bat in hand, we're going to try and get as much data as we can. It can be a traumatic experience for the bat, so we want to get their age, everything we can about them, reproductive status, so we can add that to the growing database of what we know about the local bats. Several years ago, I got the opportunity to go to Belize and see some bats there. So here's one of the bats that we caught while we were in Belize. Here's another bat we saw in these fantastic limestone caves. This was another bat we actually found. After a long night of netting, we got skunked. We didn't get a single bat. And then this one was roosting in a closet next to one of our rooms. This is a sacked wing bat. Notice there's this little packet right here. And this sack is full of pheromones. This is a male bat, and he has a harem, group of females that he protects. And he uses the pheromones here to rub on his group of females to claim them. And here we have a lined wing bat. These guys were out roosting again over the river that we were staying near. I hope you've enjoyed this talk about bats. Please don't hesitate to email me or ask me in class if you have any more questions. I think they're amazing creatures, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg of what we're learning about their biology and their ecology.